Free Walk TLV.
Free Walk TLV.
Discover Tel Aviv
like a local.
Welcome back. So this time you've brought us sources on a really significant and frankly quite harrowing piece of history, the 1929 Palestine Riots.
That's right, and specifically focusing on the Hebron Massacre, which was a central part of those events.
Okay, so our mission here, as always, is to dig into these historical accounts you've shared. We want to understand, what happened, why it happened, and what the immediate fallout was.
Exactly, and the sources we're looking at are primarily historical narratives. They describe the events, the lead-up, the aftermath.
And they set the scene, right, mentioning this long-standing Jewish community in Hebron, centuries old.
Yes, deep roots there. And
Wow.
The picture painted before 1929 is one of, apparent coexistence with Arab neighbors. Maybe not perfect, but seemingly stable.
Okay, let's get into this deep dive then. A tough subject, but an important one.
Definitely. And first thing to grasp, based on these texts, is that Hebron wasn't an isolated incident. It was horrific, yes, but part of a much larger wave.
Right, the 1929 riots hit several places in Mandatory Palestine.
Correct. We're talking Safed, Jerusalem, Acre, Jaffa. There was violence and unrest in multiple locations. Hebron was perhaps the most brutal, but it wasn't alone. It was a wider eruption.
So what was driving this? The sources point towards the Western Wall in Jerusalem as a real flashpoint, don't they?
They absolutely do. You see escalating tensions, really intense arguments around Jewish prayer rites at the wall.
Which is obviously incredibly sensitive ground, holy site for both Jews and Muslims.
Precisely. For Jews, the last remnant of the temple. For Muslims, part of the Haram al-Sharif with Al-Aqsa and the Dome of the Rock right there. And it was under Muslim administration, correct?
Yes, that's right.
So you have this intense religious significance combined with the political situation under the British Mandate and these competing national feelings. It was volatile.
And demonstrations were happening by both sides.
Yes. The sources mentioned demonstrations by both Jewish and Arab groups about access and control over the wall. And that just cranked up the tension considerably.
Okay, so that's the backdrop. Then we focus on Hebron itself, an ancient city, this long Jewish history. And then August 24th, 1929, a Shabbat morning.
Yeah, that date. It's chilling. The accounts are just brutal.
67 Jews killed by their Arab neighbors. That's the really shocking part emphasized in the sources, isn't it? The neighbor-on-neighbor violence.
It is. People they knew lived alongside, turning up armed with knives, clubs, axes, storming homes. It's hard to fathom that level of violence erupting like that.
And the sources mention the British police response, or lack thereof.
Some accounts suggest, that some local British police were ineffective or even fled, which, would only have made things worse for those being attacked, left them completely vulnerable.
The personal stories really drive home the horror. Rabbi Yaakov Slonim, he sounds like he was quite respected, even had good relations with local Arabs.
That's what the accounts say, community leader.
Yeah.
And he apparently believed his home, his connections, offered safety. He took people in, trying to shelter them.
But it didn't work.
No. Tragically, it didn't. His home became a site of massacre. 24 people killed right there.
And his daughter, Friedel Slonim, trying to protect children.
Yes. A truly heartbreaking detail. Shielding children and murdered with them. The sources mention a baby surviving, found hidden under her body. Just awful.
Unimaginable. Then there's his son, Eliezer Dan Slonim, worked for the bank, spoke Arabic, trusted by both sides.
Yeah, the sources paint him as someone really bridging the communities. Fluent Arabic, working at the Anglo-Palestine Bank. Seen as trustworthy.
And he was actively trying to calm things down, negotiate.
He was trying to mediate, which makes his fate even more tragic.
Because his home was attacked early on.
Yes, among the first. He, his wife, their infant child, all murdered. Someone actively working for peace, targeted so brutally, it really underscores the indiscriminate nature of the violence.
And the Machpelah family story, too. A connection there to a future Israeli figure, Mordechai Machpelah.
That's right. And again, just sheer brutality described. Axes, knives. 6
family members killed, including children.
Yes. Horrific. And that detail about one survivor feigning death among the bodies. Just give you a sense of the absolute terror. These weren't statistics. They were families destroyed.
But the sources are careful to include another side, too, right? Acts of real bravery from Arab neighbors.
Absolutely crucial to mention. It wasn't universal violence. There were Arabs who risked everything to save Jews. It's important that these accounts highlight that humanity.
Like Abd al-Rahman al-Jabari, hiding the Franco family.
Yes. Hid them in his home, then smuggled them out to safety. A remarkable act of courage in that environment.
And the Abu Shakr family, saving yeshiva students.
Sheltered them in their cellar, again, putting their own lives on the line. These stories, they provide a vital counterpoint,
Yep.
showing that even in the darkest times, individual choices matter. And these acts are remembered, passed down by the families who were saved.
A glimmer of humanity, as you said. So, looking at the immediate aftermath, the numbers are stark.
They are. Across all the riots in 1929, the sources state 133 Jews killed, around 339 wounded.
And Arab casualties, too.
Yes, about 116 killed. The sources note mostly by British forces trying to regain control. It highlights the widespread loss of life.
And in Hebron specifically, the British response was evacuation.
Complete evacuation of all Jews. Think about that. Centuries of continuous Jewish presence in Hebron just ended abruptly.
The trauma for the survivors must have been immense.
Unimaginable. Physical injuries, deep emotional scars. And though some Jews did try to return in 1931, briefly.
They had to leave again during the Arab Revolt in 36.
Exactly. So that return was short-lived. The 1929 events effectively marked the end of that ancient community for decades.
And the sources point to a major consequence how the Hebron Massacre was perceived and used afterward.
Yes, it became incredibly publicized, a powerful rallying cry for the Zionist movement.
Highlighting the need for self-defense.
Absolutely. It really drove home the argument for independent Jewish defense capabilities. Organizations like the Haganah gained more importance, more support. It led to a real shift in strategy, a much stronger focus on the Yishuv's security, a sense that they couldn't rely on others for protection.
And it wasn't just Hebron that saw its Jewish community diminished or ended. Safed, too.
Right. Safed also had a long history, and 18 Jews were killed there in the 29 riots. That community and others were deeply affected, some abandoned. It changed the map, in a way.
So the impact was far-reaching.
Definitely. The sources show the trauma, the vulnerability, led to the departure from places where Jews had lived for generations, and Hebron itself became this potent symbol.
A symbol of tragedy, obviously, but also resilience.
Yes, that's how it's often framed. A marker of profound loss, but also of Jewish determination to endure and rebuild. A really pivotal and painful moment in their history.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, what stands out is the shoe devastation of 1929, especially Hebron, its impact on Jewish-Arab relations. Huge.
Undeniable. And how it reshaped the Zionist approach, particularly towards security and, well, the necessity of self-reliance.
And those personal stories. They just bring the human cost into such sharp relief. It's not abstract history.
No, not at all. And what's really striking looking through these accounts is that contrast, isn't it? Extreme brutality alongside acts of incredible courage and humanity, all happening in the same place at the same time.
Yeah. Neighbors turning on neighbors and neighbors saving neighbors.
It makes you think about the complexities, the fragility of coexistence maybe, and how much individual choices can matter in those moments of crisis.
It really does. Considering these deeply personal accounts alongside the wider history, what does it tell us about how easily things can break down? But also about that capacity for good, even in the worst times. It's definitely something to reflect on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Free Walk TLV.
Free Walk TLV.
Discover
Discover Tel Aviv like a local.